On Reddit, I'm in the Ask Marketing subreddit, and user Stephen and Lily asks the headline is trying to figure out an average CPC for Facebook and Instagram targeting photographers. And there's a question mark, and there's some additional detail there. Hey, I'm thinking about starting to sell a digital product, Adobe Lightroom presets for photographers. And I know a lot of people who sell them run Facebook and Instagram ads that target photographers because with a digital product, there's no cost of goods sold. So you can get by with having a high acquisition cost. I'm curious what you think some realistic stats would be for cost per click and conversion rates if I'm selling $50 product. I've never run an ad, so I'm trying to get an idea of costs. So let's talk about this. The initial answer is the best way to figure out what works for you and your product and your sort of your funnel is to start running ads. Not a lot of money, maybe a couple $100 to see what type of performance you get. It's important to know how to use the communications tools of our times to build your business. So I haven't run a product similar to this exactly, so I can't tell you specific stats, but you can expect anywhere between 1 and 5% click-through rate, depending on how good your creative is and how targeted it matches your audience. Cost per click, it could be as low as 50 cents, as high as a couple dollars. I think what we find when we run Facebook and Instagram ads, the click-through rate actually drops when we're tracking sales, which sounds kind of weird. Like, why would that happen? And what we found is that the more Facebook targets people who are likely to purchase, they don't as often click on the ads, but they end up purchasing. Why? Because Facebook knows so much about us. It's not magic, but it sometimes feels like it's magic. How did Facebook know that I was on a keto diet and I want to eat keto cereal, but I bought? That type of thing. Like, you think it and you see the ad for it on Facebook. So that type of, like, quote unquote magic is really helpful. I think if you're just starting out, I presume you don't have the money to run ads with an agency. So I have 3 points of advice for you. Number 1, learn how to run ads on Facebook and Instagram. Number 2, get familiar with the targeting setup. Number 3, get familiar with the type of messaging that is most important to you for your clients. And I don't know what that messaging is. You don't know what that messaging is. The marketplace will tell you what that messaging is. The marketplace will tell you, look, if you run ads with a green background, it does better than ads with a blue background. Right? So it doesn't have a thesis, and be prepared to develop a testing framework so you know which creative works really well and which doesn't. And I'm talking about hundreds of creative executions and test, best practices for a creative. And I'm not a creative person, but as a marketer, I understand sort of the basics. People respond to faces. We have the human eye is much more attuned to what human faces look like than to what buildings or hands or computers look like, right? So if you show a bunch of buildings, it won't resonate as well as a bunch of different faces, right? The second thing I would be looking at from a creative standpoint is test between solving the pain that a consumer feels. So show the pain, like, oh, I can't figure out, art. Or like, I figured it out. Test which one works better for you. Maybe invest a little bit in stock photos, even though I've been told many times that stock photos don't perform as well as, looking at, much more organic photos. And I would say that in the world we live in 2019 and 2020, authenticity is incredibly important and valuable. So when you look at how content is developed, especially on TikTok, especially on Snapchat, you see that there's editing, but it's not editing from the perspective of big Hollywood cinema or television shows editing. It's not glossy, it's real, it's authentic. So I think if you take advantage of that real and authenticity, you're going to get probably a better type of performance. But I think the next step is find someone who knows how to run ads and help them guide you through a testing framework. We've started to engage. This is not a sales pitch, right? Like, so you can find people like our business, but we started to engage with businesses that we're not doing the actual media buying for them. If they're a small budget, what we do is we give them the testing framework and we help them push through that process. So they do the legwork themselves, but they have the expert knowledge of me and my team behind them, so you can know what to look for when you're running ads. And the last thing I'll say is quite possibly, if there's two things here: time and money. Okay, and you either have time or you have money. And I'll say most companies never have enough money. Even when you have hundreds of millions of dollars, you want to do things that take $1 billion, right? Like, you never really have enough money. I would use content marketing. I would start with content marketing. Post information, give away the knowledge that you have, like I'm doing with this video. Give it away and identify what the marketplace actually wants from you. Like, what challenge are you actually solving for them? The alternative is, and by the way, then you get a sense of the messaging that works really well, because you can look at the engagement and the content that drives that engagement, and you can say, okay, let's turn that thing into an ad. Like, let's create 20 pieces of content and let's find the one or two that get the highest engagement and turn that type of message into an ad and start there. You have a more informed decision as you're running ads. Because when you run advertising, you want to amplify the best. Or if you have money and you don't have time because you're on a shorter time horizon, then you've got to test with ads and spend money to find out what your customers want from you. And if you don't have a lot of money, whatever that number is, and you don't want to pay an agency to do that for you, you've got to find a friend or a family or someone or yourself. You've got to use the communications tools of our time to run advertising that works for you. So I'm happy to discuss further. Good luck. Talk to you soon.